So unfortunately, when you give the pious and teachers and scholars so much power, that also leaves room for harm. And unfortunately, in many circles, what started happening is that when you give someone so much power and they're a human being, they do dumb things, right? So let's say there's a female who has a sheikh that she loves a lot, and the sheikh was like, "Hey, take my hand and take the pledge." What do you guys think?
Wrong.
It's wrong.
Did she do it?
No.
No.
But that's her sheikh.
So it's crossing the limit.
Exactly. Like what we have to understand is that every sheikh is also a human being, and every sheikh has their own shaitan. And so la ta'ata fi ma'asiyatin. Then the hadith is very important. That there is no obedience in sinning. And that goes throughout. That goes for parents, that goes for teachers, it goes for sheikhs, it goes for military leaders. Like that context of the hadith is military. إِنَّمَا الطَّاعَةُ فِي الْمَعْرُوفِ. Obedience is only in good things. So let's say you're part of the military and then someone's like, hey, kill that child. Are you going to obey?
No.
No, because it's hadith, لا طاعة في معصية. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
So that's really, really important. And this is where I want to kind of come back and talk to you guys about this culture. I'm sure a couple of years ago, the Muslim world was like in storm. Because every few years, you have some Muslim figure come out and their sins get exposed. I'm sure you guys can kind of think of some examples. Don't mention examples, but think of them, correct?
Correct. Yeah.
And many people who used to love these people, I mean, there's a human element of this that they start having a faith crisis themselves. Okay? And this is where I want to kind of remind you what this actually is. So let's say tomorrow on the news it comes out Abdullah Yazmalani is a piece of garbage. And Abdullah is a piece of garbage, I'm telling you right now. Okay. Should that affect your, I mean, one thing is a human element, which is totally natural and you probably need to just like work through it. But logically, should that affect your faith? Everything we just discussed in Aqidah, would that be invalid? Like I think what this idea when the Prophet ﷺ passed away, Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu got on the minbar and he said, anyone who used to worship the Prophet, he's dead. Anyone who worships Allah, Allah never dies. Our connection, just like, for example, you go to a social worker, you're not worried about their personal life. Our connection is a connection of Allah, right? And whatever, let's say this is my life, and this is the Islamic element of my life that you and I connected on. In this circle in the middle, as long as that benefited you and that brought you to the deen of Allah, like whatever in that interaction was in accordance with the deen of Allah and brought you to the deen of Allah, that is where our connection lies. If I give you a command, if I make a comment, if I have my own personal thing that is outside the deen of Allah, that's not what our connection is based on. Does that make sense? It's like if I go to the doctor and me and the doctor make a few jokes, that's not part of our medical interaction. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like ideally, we should look for virtuous teachers. Don't get me wrong, but we are only responsible for the parent. We don't have to then do an investigation on their private life and be like, oh, well, actually, this guy, you know. So at the end of the day, it is harmful to put the pious or the teachers more than where they need to be. And I want to kind of digress and I want to talk about just the harm that the entire culture does on everybody. Right? Are you guys aware of the fixed mindset versus the growth mindset? Mr. Anna, you and I have spoken about this. No?
We did, but I probably couldn't explain it. I might have.
Okay. So I have your homework for today is going to be a podcast that I did on this. But the growth mindset versus the fixed mindset. Let's see. Who was insane over here? Bilal, you were insane, right? But who else was there? There was like someone else who was insane. But Bilal, you're insane, correct?
Yeah. So
Your child comes to you And I feel like I talked to you about this before. Each child comes to you, he's got an A plus on his test. Did I talk to you about this before?
No, I don't think so.
And the child is like, here, daddy, I got an A plus. Which of these two options are you going to tell the child? Number one, wow, you got an A plus? You must be so smart. Option two, wow, you got an A plus? You must have worked super hard for it. Which one?
Oh, they're very close.
I know.
Yeah, I think I might choose option two.
Yeah, option two. Option two is the better option because
Yeah.
you're putting the success on the hard work, not on who they are as a person.
Giving a
They've done
reasoning.
studies- Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. No, sorry, I'm saying you're giving it a reason that why you got the A plus.
Exactly.
You're letting the child understand, yeah.
They've done studies on this where they give two groups of kids a puzzle. And they do the puzzle and they're like, wow, you're so smart and you're so hardworking. And they give them a few puzzles like that. And what happens is the child that you tell is they're so smart, they start thinking that this is an inherent quality that they have. So the next test, they don't feel like studying because I'm smart. What are you talking about? I don't need to study. And then if they fail, they get an identity crisis. They're like, wait, am I not smart anymore? Am I stupid? You know? Compare that to the second child. The next test, that child wants to study even more because they're like, oh, well, if I got success through hard work, let me put in more hard work. And when they fail, they're more resilient because they're like, oh, maybe I just didn't work hard enough. Let me work harder in the future. You know what I'm saying?
Yep,
Yeah.
definitely, yeah.
Yep.
So when it comes to deen, we do the first a lot. Many of us, when we stand up to pray salah, and we're thinking about focusing on salah, we're like, who am I as a sinner to be able to focus on salah? Do you guys feel that sometimes? Maybe not focusing on salah, but other deeds. Do you feel like, who am I? Am I being a sinner? Who am I to be able to do this? With scholars, we destroy them with this. Like, I am super scared for my daughter. You know how difficult it is being the scholar's daughter in the community? You're this white cloth, and that destroys people. I know so many scholars' children who get destroyed with this, right? Because you don't want that title on your head. Like, you didn't choose to be a scholar. And destroys, like, even the scholars themselves, it destroys you because when you're the Hafiz Sahib, the Maulana Sahib, whatever, and that's the mindset you get on your head, then when you do something wrong, you often justify it because you're like, hey, I can't be this bad person. I'm Maulana Sahib. You know? So really there is some balance that's needed. I think obviously, scholars being exposed and stuff, or speakers being exposed, obviously it has other elements that we do as a community to get better at. But one element is what we think of these people. I'm hoping no matter what happens of the Layas Walani tomorrow or the next year or whatever, the lessons that we've taken from here, we've always backed them up from the words of Allah, from the words of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. If I was sitting here and not talking about Allah and the Prophet, then none of you would want to come here and sit with me. You're not here because, oh, Abdullah is this cool guy and I want to spend time with him. You're here because of Allah and the Prophet. And whether I'm a piece of garbage or not, Allah and the Prophet's words are always going to remain, and everything we talked about will still be of value.